This is Defacto Review, where we run down the top news from the previous week, and then we discuss what happens next. Hi, I'm Terrence Edwards, and with us tonight is our host, Jargal Defacto.
Hello, everyone.
How was your week?
Interesting week for
Yeah,
whole country.
big one.
I've seen the first time the parliament is having sessions through the night, all the way to 3 a.m., 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So it's something that has never happened before.
They're definitely working at breakneck speed to cobble together a government in quick time.
Yeah, because since the election, it was very long break due to Assam, Nadam, all these events. So they had to go now faster because this prime minister is sitting with acting ministers already many days, over 2 weeks. So that's why it is the urgency.
Yeah, and the election definitely left some big issues hanging in the air. So we're going to discuss some of those. So let's go and take a look at what we'll be discussing tonight. We begin with the new government. President Sakia Elbek-Dorch has spoken out against the new Prime Minister, Jargal Erdenet, and his pool of new minister appointments for the cabinet secretariat. He's criticized that the Mongolian People's Party is not sticking by its promise to create a professionally qualified government. Parliament confirmed 11 out of the 15 minister jobs at 3 a.m. late on Saturday during an overnight session of Parliament. The President, however, has issued a statement criticizing these appointments. He's saying that they don't comply with the political party's promise and the so-called double-del restriction that the President has been pushing for. This means that the President would like to see cabinet members that aren't also members of Parliament. Under particular scrutiny are the appointments to the ministers for food and agriculture, construction and urban development, energy, and health. So what I'm interested to know is how much of this, where does the outrage begin and where does the political jousting end? What do you make of the president's criticisms?
Well, new prime minister has to agree his candidates for ministers for ministries with the president. Though, in the normal case, that prime minister should be in charge of hiring and firing, in a way, the ministers.
Sure.
In order to be fully responsible for the decisions of the whole cabinet. And this is, unfortunately, is not the case in Mongolia for quite some time. So as a result, we have always a weak prime minister in the sense of holding responsible his ministers for certain tasks he would say, he would urge them to do so. So that's this problem. This problem is repeated again now. And more than that, the ministers, out of 15, they have brought 11 now, as you said, now approved by the parliament.
Yeah.
And out of this 11 approved, 7 are those who are also parliament members. So which
that's double del.
Yes.
Two robes, two hats.
Which is not very good news. But however, that's principle they have agreed. So these 4 particular persons are refused because there was a statement by anti-corruption agency about each of them finding or describing them being in conflict of interests with the ministry's work, because one, for example, has 8 companies in that particular industry that that person will be responsible for. The other person, the same interest, had not declared his brother's company in the same field, etc. In general, anti-corruption agency find that these people will have, and they have already, conflicts of interests.
Particularly with these members that are under scrutiny, the health minister, the proposed health minister, energy, etc.
Yeah. You see, this is a very interesting or very worrying signal, because why they would bring candidates that they know a priori that they have this sort of conflicts of interest. So it might raise an issue for me of party financing again, because it's very wealthy individuals, majority of them.
Yeah.
And the concerning is about, again, party financing issues, which is very systematic kind of sickness of Mongolian political system, where rich individuals contribute, donate huge sums of money to political parties, and through which they have some right to be a minister or so. Unfortunately, we cannot up to now stop and cut the unhealthy chain of our governance. So I think it was just a reflection of that. But however, if you look at it bigger on the way how new cabinet is formed, in Mongolia being formed now, raise an issue again that how much the role of the state will be in the economy of this country. Will they continue the huge role they always pretend to play, thus creating more economic crisis, destroying the confidence of private sector, and creating not playing level field. So maybe most likely they will continue it, which is a big concern. The second concern, if you take a bigger picture, is every time in Mongolia when the new prime minister comes, after election or during the 4-year periods, they always change this, the structure of the cabinet, which is very bad practices, because then they have revived certain people, public officers, ministries, and they don't know what to do, to which ministry they have to go one morning. So maybe it is a time for Mongolia to adopt a law where only by the three-fourths of the parliamentarians only approve the structure of the cabinet.
Yeah.
So the last point I really in this regard want to highlight is it's a high time for Mongolia to have a job description for ministers and job qualification at once too, because if it is company, if there is no job description of CEO, then how it will work? And job qualification is very important for Mongolia, because now this current situation today requires very high competitive professional leaders in each government offices to be in charge. And plus, of course, officers, public officers who are to be also professionals.
So I want to let our viewers know that don't quite grasp this metaphor. The double Del restriction is basically, it's parliament members having 2 hats or 2 robes, the Mongolian traditional robe known as the Del. And the president has been working for a number of years to try to break down these conflicts of interest that he sees when members of parliament take these ministerial posts. But I do think it's worth noting that he was just as hard on the Democrats who belong to his own party for making the same mistake. We have to move on. We're looking at a deal that came from the previous government that the new government's sitting on. The new Prime Minister, Jargal Tolga Erdenet, is re-evaluating a deal that his predecessor, Chmed Saakashvili, said would put the Mongolia-Russia joint venture, the Erdenet copper mine, 100% into Mongolian hands. Privately owned company Mongolian Copper Corporation was set to buy 49% of the Erdenet mine from the Russian government. That had a price tag for about $400 million US. Former Prime Minister Saakashvili disclosed the deal at a press conference on 28th of June. That was a day after the international news wire Bloomberg broke the news and a day before the election, which was key for some observers. Members of parliament today from the Mongolian People's Party have expressed some outrage about the secret deal, the allegedly secret deal, which was the Mongolian People's Party was the opposition when the deal was made as well. Those MPP members have said the deal was a fraud, and some say hazardous to the Mongolian economy. So what do you make of these criticisms? Are they overstated? Are they realistic?
Well, Russia owns 49%, and before they sell, they before they made the decisions that they will sell it 49% of this joint venture Erdenet to any customer who wants to buy, only at the conditions that Mongolian government has agreed. That was a parliament decisions of Russia on June 2. We have mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Then on June 13, from Mongolian side, Russia received an official note from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which says yes, the government of Mongolia does agree with that transaction. So in that way, I think there is not, from Russia's side, any this legal mistake as we
They were upfront about it.
But however, now the issue is from Mongolian side, when they agree to sell, when the Russians ask, instead of they are suggesting they are buying, or because according to the contract that the other partner or Mongolian government has a full right to buy it. Instead of that, they just allowed some other body to buy. So there's a big questions now. Mostly, it is not the question and hesitation about that Russians sold it. The hesitation to the private company. I think people also welcomes companies like Erdenet to be owned by private companies.
There's not a lot known about this one, though.
Yeah, the issue is now the first, public doesn't know about this company who bought. Secondly, why the officials, related top officials of Mongolia, had agreed to that. And it's, I think, a matter, that's what this parliament member Nyamdor suggests. Now, new cabinet, and to disclose all this and to check whether it was legally correct or not from Mongolian side.
Yeah.
According to Mongolian laws or not. So I think it will go ahead, that sort of inspection. But many other deals, I mean, this big deal, like many other previous deals or criminal news, they can just slowly disappear from their other, with maybe other news, other events, as Mongolian politicians do a lot. If it is the case that it is slowly disappears, the issue, then it shows the quality of public governance in the country, and most importantly, the level of integrity of this current People's Party. The people will find that if they have a silence on that, maybe they're also there, also connected with that transactions. So Mongolians look at these inspections, making clear inside of Mongolia. I'm not talking about across the border with the Russians. The Russians have solid done. Now, what is inside, that's if the further proceedings on the Erdenet issue will be a big test of future democracy of this country, future quality of the public governance, the most importantly, Mongolian people's confidence in this and the previous political powers. That's what is the point of the issue.
And how do you feel about the $400 million price tag on this asset?
Well, let's not here discuss that value, whether it was correct value or not value. First of all, it is a matter of that transaction itself. I think when we will make clear about that, what exactly happened, that issue will come about the money. You remember when we have first saw the breaking news, it was $500 million. Then later on, the CEO of the Trade and Development Bank said,
who's lending for the deal?
Yes, he said that it was totally $400 million.
Yeah.
So the time will show which figure is correct, along with the transactions itself. So let's see and wait what this new cabinet will do, and what they must do urgently something, because it was a request by their parliamentarians from the same party.
Yeah. Moving on, we're watching and waiting the Democratic Party as well. The Democratic Party is reforming after a devastating loss from the Mongolian People's Party in the parliamentary elections last month. The Democrats now have just 9 seats compared with the 34 they had from 2012 to 2016. Meanwhile, the Mongolian People's Party has an 85% of the legislature, the state Great Horror. At a party meeting on the 19th of July, the Democrats outlined new plans for how to move forward. That includes the appointment of a new chair. The former chair, Zandahu Enkbolt, has stepped down after losing his seat. Creating a new party constitution, introducing greater transparency and depending less on large donors. Also, an important issue is resolving the division within the party has created so many problems for it while it was in power. So let's take a look back at the last 4 years. Where did the Democratic Party go wrong while it was ruling the government?
First of all, Terence, out of things that Democratic Party had agreed to do, so far they have done only one thing, which is just they have replaced all the chair with acting chair.
Yeah.
And they have agreed to discuss all the rest of the issues you just described, to discuss thoroughly on December 6th at the party congress, which is kind of quite a long delay from the ordinary people's perspective. And the feeling is Democratic Party is not completely using the chance they had now to renew their own political party, which is in the interest of the Mongolian public, because that's only hope that at the new next election we have a strong opposition of the ruling party. So I think a more bureaucratic approach is happening towards a change, a reform of this political party first. Secondly, if they will do Congress in early December, before that they should have several discussions, maybe conferences, seminars at all levels, all around the country, with research, facts about what was wrong with the rules, the charter of the party, why they need to change. Then they need to bring now more institutional database rather than just somebody's opinion, etc. If they don't do that, they don't discuss the issues all around the country, very in clear way, very straight with the statistics analysis, then I'm afraid of, like many other congresses, it will be a congress where the emotional concepts, emotional comments will be prevailing. So we are expecting Democratic Party is doing their own analysis on discussions now, first. Secondly, Democratic Party is to completely make clear what is their vision of the future of the country, what is the role of their political party. or the role of the state as well. Because it's as much as this Democratic Party became a very populistic one too. So it's a time for make very clear all their main purpose, main differences, main platform they agree to go on. Lastly, they should agree about the transparency of their political party and election financing. Without that clearance, without disclosing all these matters to ordinary government party members, this political party cannot be renewed completely in 6 months. So that's my take. And at the end, also they should discuss about leadership. Who is leadership? Who are the leaders? Which has integrity, which has a capacity to lead all political parties through this all problems. Only if that person has a clear vision that he can do, otherwise not. So there's major structural and reforms we are waiting for from the Democratic Party.
When I look back 4 years around this time, July, I recall that younger members of the Mongolian People's Party were up in arms saying that the Mongolian People's Party was out of touch with the youth, this generation. And I think there is a perception that they did address some of those issues, because I recall the night of the election last month, there were people dancing in front of the Mongolian People's Party headquarters, and I spoke with a girl, and she actually called the Mongolian People's Party the party of the youth, the party of the young people, which I was a little aghast at.
Well,
so,
you have rightly pointed out that they have worked very clearly on it.
Yeah.
They have rebranded in a way that it's a young youth party.
Yeah.
And remember, for the city, that was first surprise for me was when they have put the city candidates, 45 young, very well educated, mostly people. That was very amazing and surprising, and it's candidates, and it is not surprising why they have won, for example, out of 45 seats in the city, 37 of them. So they will have a absolute majority. They have already absolute majority, and let's see if these young people can lead to the directions where they wanted to do so. Time will show again, and I think again, at your note, Democratic Party will do the same. Because just one reason, Mongolia is a very young country, 50% of the population is under 30 years old. And that's why not surprising that the bigger power, larger enthusiastic part of the Democratic Party, mostly young people, want to change their party.
Yeah.
Hopefully they will succeed, not only as because youth, also with the other strata of population, middle class, middle level age, and then middle age and the senior people. They will go together and they will win it, I hope.
Yeah. Well, we got to get to one last story.
Okay.
We're looking at the numbers now. The budget deficit in June climbed to 1.12 trillion tugrik as Mongolia juggles its ballooning debt. Mongolia has been borrowing heavily since 2012 with the launch of the $1.5 billion Chinggis bond. And worries are growing over whether Mongolia will be able to repay the principal debt when it comes as scheduled next year. Total revenue fell 17.4% short of the target last month, tallying at 2.5 trillion. Those earnings were also 3.8% below last year's earnings during the same period in June. So what do you make of the growing debt in Mongolia? Some broad strokes.
Well, it is not surprising, and because last 4 years, as you said, driven by mostly borrowing from abroad, first time from the capital market, Mongolia was going mostly with budget deficit. Total annual budget deficit was about 1 trillion tugriks.
Yeah.
But this time, just for first half of this year, is already over 1 trillion tugriks, which we do expect at least will be twice more this year, which shows two things. First of all, Democrats were never cutting any costs. in spite of this increasing budget deficit, increasing the fall of income, budget income, they will keep borrowing. Even remember they have been buying back Tavan Tolga shares from people with borrowed money. So the situation is not good. This new political power is receiving a lot of problems now. But first of all, it is an issue of paying debt soon. The debt Genghis Khan bound, $500 million from the end of the next year, where we don't have now at least the special fund to pay that.
Yeah.
And not only that, many other, there is a commitment, certain guarantee of loans of the development bank, etc. Many things they have to pay. And plus, there's a huge amount of domestic debt, mostly to commercial banks, with very high interest rate. That is almost makes Mongolian bank not even giving a credit loan to companies because it is that much profitable. So in such situation, when the economy needs more money, but bank is happy with buying government domestic bonds, you can imagine the situation of money in general. It's a hard time. The government is to announce it, and government is to cut a lot of programs which impossible to continue.
Well, I was surprised because the Mongolian People's Party really harped on austerity and cutting down on the borrowing. But one of the first things I heard was, we're going to borrow $1 billion by the end of the year.
Yeah, on one hand, they have to, if they don't cut the expenses, which will be very dramatic on many people who used to receive, every child receives money every month, every senior people receives several amount of month, etc., etc. Students all used to have a stipendium.
Yeah.
So we cannot afford any more this sort of.
Not without more foreign investment.
Yep. Those two sources, foreign investment and borrowing, both are not working anymore because now foreign investment to come to which sector, for example, few in agro-processing industry, which is mostly domestic, the dominant domestic companies, and to receive foreign direct investment to other than mining, not easy, but there are some points where some companies have interest, but it's not that substantial. So in that circumstances, government has to cut their costs. If they will not cut, the budget deficit will increase, and they need at the end to be under IMF standby program.
I have to cut you off there because we're all out of time, unfortunately. We hope our briefings give you guys a head start when you hit work next week on Monday. Any final thoughts?
Well, today, what does it show, the time does it show to me is Mongolia is making clear or trying to understand shall we have more government in the economy or private sector in the economy? And more market does the decisions or more government does make decisions. So this is the dilemma we have, and eventually we will go through that, and hopefully we will get more rational solutions on that. Thank you very much for listening to us, watching, and we are looking forward to seeing you next week at this time. Thank you.
Good night, Ulaanbaatar.